Michael Costa, we see Chinese shoppers desperate for our stuff, like baby formula in this case, but the Chinese regime banning some of our stuff, or not some of our stuff, but I'm talking about the meat and I'm talking about the barley, to punish us. Now, does this actually, the baby formula case, suggest to you that China can only take these bans so far because its consumers actually need a lot of the stuff that we produce?
Well, look, Andrew, I mean, what people have got to understand about trade is that it's got to be mutually beneficial. If it's not mutually beneficial, you can't expect it to continue beyond because of, a preferential relationship or because, you're kowtowing to the Chinese. If our products can't stand up in the market, if they aren't the best for Chinese consumers, they won't be bought. And, I think people have got this whole trade relationship upside down. I mean, the fact is that trade has to be, as a fundamental foundation, mutually beneficial. If it's not, the Chinese will go elsewhere, and we're also entitled to go elsewhere with our exports as well. But look, the fundamental point is that the Chinese kleptocracy is got some real challenges. And I'm not talking about just the short-term challenges, but the longer-term challenges of turning themselves into a proper consumer-based society. There's a lot of poverty in China. There's a lot of demand amongst the more wealthy elements for Western goods, and I don't mean just Australian goods, but also fashion goods and cultural goods. And the Chinese government is going to have a real difficult time stopping people from accessing these products. It puts itself at peril if it does that. But at the end of the day, kowtowing to them is not going to give us a beneficial relationship.
Well, on that point, Michael Kroger, the government wants this independent inquiry into how this coronavirus started in China, right? And it looks like the World Health Assembly overnight might, we still don't know the vote, might actually back the idea of an inquiry. But I'm just wondering how independent it will be when the only bit that relates possibly to China about where it started, the Assembly, the motion before the Assembly is to ask three bodies to look into it. One of them is the World Health Organization, headed by this bloke who seems to be in China's pocket, singing his praises. And a second one, the Food and Agricultural Organization, is headed by a Chinese citizen who used to be a deputy minister in the Chinese government until last year. Hey,
sure. Look, Andrew,
how independent is this?
Well, it depends who's on the inquiry. That's the thing. But as an Australia have presented their submission, it's a very strong submission that Greg Hunt's signed off on, where he's talked about the wet markets and wanting a complete review of what's happened. So it's a very strong submission by Australia. China, we haven't seen yet. We don't know what the Chinese submission is, so that'll be fascinating. But here's the thing you've got to remember. Dr Tedros, our friend, the head of the WHO, elected in 2017, previously a member of the terrorist Ethiopian government, in his early days a member of the Tigray People's Liberation Front. He's a communist stroke Marxist stroke Leninist from his early days through his whole political career. He got elected head of the WHO, and that's the same body that's the World Health Assembly that's meeting this weekend. He was elected 133 to 52. So, Andrew, that's what you've got to worry about. A bloke with that extremist background gets a huge percentage of votes. It shows you what influence and control the Chinese have of the WHO, and the answer will be who's on the committee. It's a huge worry. It's a huge worry.